Have you ever stopped to wonder how we got the words for things we can't actually see? I'm not talking about regular objects, but those invisible forces that shape our entire lives. From our own thoughts to the heat from the sun. Well, it turns out a lot of that language comes from a really old blueprint, one drawn up by the ancient Greeks. I mean, it's pretty easy to name a tree or a rock, right? You can see it, you can touch it. But what about the really important stuff, the concepts that are just as real but are totally invisible? Like the incredibly complex machinery of your own mind, or those powerful, invisible currents of emotion that we all experience. They pretty much define who we are, but you can't exactly hold them in your hand. And it's not just our inner world either. Think about the fundamental forces of nature, like the relentless flow of water or the invisible energy of heat. They're incredibly powerful, but we can't see them. So, where did the language for all this stuff come from? Well, a huge chunk of our scientific vocabulary was essentially engineered by the ancient Greeks. They created a kind of blueprint for naming the unseen. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to start with the most personal, invisible world there is, our own mind and feelings. Let's start with our first piece of this blueprint, the Greek root psyche. This one little root is the foundation for how we talk about the mind, the soul, our very spirit. It all goes back to one single, powerful Greek word, psyche. And here's what's so cool about this. Psyche didn't start as some big abstract idea. Originally, it just meant breath, the most basic physical sign of life. The Greeks took that very real, tangible concept and let it evolve, first into the idea of a soul, and eventually into the concept of the mind itself. It went from something physical to something totally metaphysical. And you can see this blueprint in action all over the place. Just take the word psychology. It's a perfect construction. You have psych for the mind, and you add ology, which means the study of. So, the study of the mind. It's so simple and elegant, and it's built directly from those ancient parts. All right, now for the next piece of our inner world puzzle, the root path. This one is incredibly versatile. It covers everything from deep feeling and raw experience, all the way to suffering and disease, all of it bundled into the Greek idea of pathos. And this is where the Greek blueprint just shows its genius. Look at empathy versus sympathy. Empathy is built from en, meaning in, plus path. It's about feeling your way into someone else's experience. But sympathy uses syn, which means with or together, so it's about feeling with someone. Just by swapping that one tiny prefix, you get two totally different ideas. That's incredible precision. And that brings us to the other side of path, its connection to suffering. When you pair it with that same logy suffix, you get pathology, which is literally the study of suffering. It's the exact same root as empathy, just looked at through a more clinical, scientific lens. And this starts to show a really fascinating pattern. When we're talking about feelings, it's the Greek roots that gave us the vocabulary for science and psychology, words like pathology and empathy. But Latin, on the other hand, tended to give us the words for our more personal, everyday feelings, like sensitive or sentiment. Okay, so let's take this blueprint and move from our inner world to the outer world. The Greeks used the exact same system to name the invisible forces of nature. We're going to focus on two of the biggest ones, water and heat. So first up, water. The Greek root here is hydra, which comes from their word hydor. This one simple root became the essential building block for pretty much the entire scientific language of H2O. A perfect example, the element hydrogen. The name literally tells you what it does. Hydrogen means water, and gen means to create or be born from. So hydrogen is the water creator, because when you burn it, you get water. The science is literally baked right into the word. And look, there's that Greek versus Latin pattern again. The Greek root hydra gives us our science and engineering terms, hydrogen, hydraulic. Meanwhile, the Latin root aqua gives us our more common everyday words like aquatic or aquarium. Our final root from the blueprint is therm, from the Greek therme, which means heat, and this one is the key that unlocks the language we use to talk about measure and control temperature. I mean, just think about the word thermostat. It's a perfect example. Therm means heat, and statos means to make stand or to fix. So a thermostat literally makes the heat stand still at a certain level. And, of course, there's the thermometer. It's just as simple. Therm, heat, plus metron, which means measure. It's a heat measurer. You see, the Greek blueprint gives us this beautifully logical and descriptive vocabulary. So, what's the big picture here? Well, from the human soul to the temperature of the air, this ancient Greek blueprint provides a remarkably consistent and powerful foundation for the language of science. So here they are, our 4 keys from the blueprint. We've got psyche for the mind, path for feeling, hydra for water, and therm for heat. Just a few simple roots that unlock an entire world of scientific understanding. And an ancient quote like this one from Heraclitus really reminds us that, for the Greeks, these weren't just technical labels. Words like psyche were deeply philosophical, connecting the real, tangible world to abstract ideas about the soul and about reason. This blueprint isn't just about words, it's a whole way of thinking. So, that leaves us with a final question for you. Now that you can recognize the blueprint, what other invisible forces do you see out there that are still named by the Greeks? Because once you start looking for them, trust me, you'll find them everywhere. Thanks for joining me for this.